What is the sad truth about smart people? They have no effect on dumb people's opinions. Persuasion, like teaching, is definitely a separate skill from intelligence. You can throw around facts and logic all you want, but humans aren't robots, and what you/they consider factual and logical may not be so. Our school system, Australia, isn't built to deal with them. It crushes bright kids down to everyone else's level. The usual solution is just to give them extra work to do on top of the assigned work when they finish that too fast. But to a kid, that's a punishment. In this way, achieving beyond a certain accepted parameter is quietly discouraged. Pretty sure that's the same everywhere. My youngest child is in kindergarten, US first year of school. For some reason, he picked up math and is always working on it, like challenging us to give him math questions to solve and challenging us to see if he can stump us. Anyway, he complains a lot about doing math assignments in school because they are super boring. At first, his teacher let him work ahead on his own, and he started doing first grade, then second grade math. But for some reason, she rescinded that offer and now just gives him more kindergarten-level math when he's done with his first boring assignment, so to him, that is a punishment. The school is teaching him to be average and conform. Otherwise, you'll be punished for running ahead. One reason for that is the teachers have no training to manage gifted students, and usually they only have one teacher for all the subject areas until at least high school, Australia. So having even one gifted student would put a bunch of extra strain on the teachers, and they aren't compensated any extra for it. Some might say that the system is built to deal with them. It teaches them mediocrity is the safe space, and that the tall head gets the whack, and that conforming is the best option. Same here in the US at least 30 years ago when I was at their mercy. It was the same about 20 years ago too. No child left behind equals no child gets ahead. We were all forced to go the same pace as the dumbest kids. So when I was in kindergarten and first grade, I was also actually gifted at math and reading and writing. When they realized that, during the times the teacher was covering math and English, I would get separated from my friends and forced to do second and third grade work alone. As a kid, I hated that. And at the start of second grade, we moved to a different town. My mom wanted to tell the teachers about how advanced I was, but I stopped doing as good in those subjects specifically so I wouldn't get separated from everyone else, especially as the new kid. There is just no winning in that situation. They are full of doubt compared to people who are not smart. The whole problem with the world is that fools and fanatics are always so certain of themselves and wiser people so full of doubts. B. Russell. The best lack all conviction while the worst are full of passionate intensity. William Butler Yeats. Smart people also see a lot more nuance and complications to certain situations instead of just doing the thing. Good old analysis paralysis. Fear of failure is a B. Momentum is key. Most of the time, doing the wrong thing is less bad than doing nothing. Doing the wrong thing gives you more information and more perspective. Doing nothing just leaves you with the same set of knowledge you had before. You know, the one that led you to the conclusion that you should continue to do nothing. The important point is being sensitive to changes in information. Embrace the fact that you might be doing it wrong and be ready to flip on a dime the moment new information comes along. Confidence is the food of the wise man, but the liquor of the fool. Smart enough to realize just how much you don't understand. There's different levels of smartness, and different smart people go about life in different ways, but I think universally young prodigies are typically isolated. They're at a level far above children their age, but far younger than the people that match intellectually with, lacking life experience. Either way, a young prodigy can't connect with either group. This is dead-on accurate. I went to engineering school with a 12-year-old. His parents had to attend classes with him because his motor skills couldn't keep up with the note-taking requirement. He was a nice enough kid, but those of us 18 plus couldn't relate to him outside of school, and he couldn't relate to kids his own age. Seemed like an awfully lonely existence. Yeah, we had a kid like this in my freshman physics classes too, except this kid was annoying to boot. He would have been the annoying kid in a regular group of 12 to 13-year-olds, so it was extra frustrating to have him in a college classroom. I felt bad for him, but the couple of conversations I tried to have with him went nowhere fast. I stopped talking to him entirely beyond the basic hi after he took my initial willingness to talk before class as permission to bug me about his toys during lecture. Interestingly, my sophomore roommate was another prodigy, but her parents made sure she wasn't socially isolated and only enrolled her in university full-time when she was 16, almost 17, and mature enough to bond with us. They kept her in a regular school, though advanced by 2 years, that offered lots of APs and community college courses. They nurtured her intelligence when she was younger by encouraging her to branch out and learn to do all kinds of things, not just academics. So she's a fascinating person to talk to and very well adjusted socially. If I have a prodigy child, this is the approaching plan to take. Both parents attended with them. Jeez Louise. Terrence Tao is a rare example of how to get this right. A maths prodigy at a young age, sitting in university maths classes at age 9. His parents accelerated his math studies, but tried hard to keep him amongst kids his own age for other classes, and encouraged him to study broadly rather than rush ahead. What's the point of being the youngest to do something if you're socially limited and lonely? And he's one of the few child prodigies who continued on to become an adult prodigy. Usually child prodigies are either regular children who had a head start in terms of education, mislabeling them as prodigies, or get so burnt out by the time they're adults that they rarely do anything substantial. This is something I've never even thought about, but now that you mention it, it makes sense. I was one of those so-called gifted kids who felt everything in school was too easy and not at all challenging, and it felt like I never learned anything. Eventually, teachers gave me older kids' assignments, which were supposed to be more challenging, so I was doing higher grade work than my classmates, but I was also very scared of the older kids because they all seemed so adults to me. At the same time, I felt very out of place among the kids my age because to me, a majority of them were always acting very childishly, which of course is granted since they were children. And I was always miserable and thinking stuff like, can't they just calm down and do what they're told by the teacher? So the dissonance that comes with being a smart kid but not yet emotionally developed to the same level as the older kids is quite exhausting and leads to misery. Maybe unrelated, but nowadays I, the formerly gifted kid, am miserable due to the fact that I never really had to work for anything, so any remotely challenging tasks I need to do are very much overwhelming. Oofta, I can feel this. There's nothing quite like the pressure of being told you're gifted or, dear Lord, not living up to your full potential. But honestly, I think a lot of kids labeled as gifted, as I once was, are just smart in certain areas or ways. There are lots of kinds of intelligence, and while my brain is good at math and stuff, I'm not so bright with plenty of other things. For instance, when it comes to making one coherent comment to a story, I'm obviously not getting an A. A lot of them are depressed. This is what I've seen most, and too many try to deaden it with substances. I've always noticed how people with addiction problems seem to be ridiculously smart. They also realize this but can't get out of their own way to fix it. To be fair, depression is a vicious cycle. You need to spend energy to fix the things you need to fix, but the depression is siphoning all of your energy. The worst part is knowing what you need to do but not doing it, infuriating yourself, leading to more depression. They don't always find ways of living up to their potential. To add to this, they're often told they should live up to their potential simply because it exists. The number of times myself and some of my current MSc colleagues have been told we are wasting our potential by not being physicians is soul-crushing and demeaning because it implies that pursuing anything other than the hardest, highest-paid disciplines is a waste of you, regardless of what makes you happy. Truly sad to see smart people in careers or lives they hate because they did what other people told them they should do. In careers or lives they hate because they did what other people told them they should do. Cries in lawyer. Being held back by a boss who's less intelligent and insecure is a thing too. I'm a teacher and don't ever want to be the boss. I like being in my classroom. So I have to endure administrators who have no business holding the job and abuse their power to punish anyone they sense is smart and confident. I make a point of not correcting them publicly and not doing any of the know-it-all habits some bright people have, but many of them have targeted me over the years for ridiculous things because they can, or are not welcomed by the current system. There are people who are insanely smart, but it's either disability, school, or pure stupidity of people holding them back. Or their egos are out of control and they'll never keep a job. Also, some are bullies. Being smart doesn't mean nice. Yeah, fact is, lots of different kinds of people can be smart. Being smart is just one aspect of a person, and it doesn't guarantee anything else about a person. Expectations. This is the killer. If you are gifted, having an average life is seen as a failure. I always found a life of crime is the best way around this. I was identified as highly gifted in elementary, and all my life consisted of my family being like, "You're smart, you've got this," for anything. Burned me out, and I rebelled in middle school and high school, then ended up with depression. Doing much better now, and I'm in grad school, but being gifted is such effing pressure. Not just from others, but from yourself. They often adopt unrealistically high expectations from their parents, constantly struggle to meet them, and success is always expected, never appreciated. I'm smart enough to know not to expect anything from me. Expectations, never learning to study until it's too late, being forced to learn outside of your age-related interests, being terrified of failure, not being able to balance ambition and said fear of failure. Once again, expectations. My mother put so much pressure on me at such a young age I couldn't handle it. I have done well for myself as an adult, but will never be able to live up to those expectations set by her and others. I should probably go back to therapy. College was a real slap in the face. Cruising through high school, getting A's without trying does not set you up for success in the real world. Mental illness rates are dramatically higher. Being smart enough to know you're right while dealing with people too stupid to know they're wrong is soul-crushing. It gets even worse when you try to gracefully agree to disagree and they see it as a victory and act cocky. Well, this one got my hackles up. I've had some disagreements like this, and frankly, some of them are like 10 to 20 years old, and I still angrily think about them to this day. There are different types of intelligence. Being good at physics doesn't mean that you should manage people. I'm really good at math, getting a PhD in statistics right now. I once worked for one afternoon as a busboy, and it was legitimately the most difficult thing I've ever done because I'm just not built for that. Mad respect for people that don't crumble under immediate stress in social situations. Similar for me, I've been good at math since I was young, and I've recently completed my master's course in pure math. I've been working part-time in a warehouse, and when I got asked to do the supervisor's job one day, I have never felt so dumb in my life. So much this. I went to MIT, and I saw a lot of cases where people who were absolutely brilliant in one, usually academic, area were absolutely not so in another, usually practical area. All the smart kids that turned into smart adults are severely burnt out and need a break for everything. I just wrote a comment about this as I have first-hand experience. I am not an expert, but I think it's at least partly the constant lack of a real challenge. Always doing tasks that are too easy for you that eventually molds an adult that feels anything challenging is overwhelming. That's how I feel when I encounter tasks that are challenging for me. I end up being so overwhelmed that I don't get anything done. I want to be the one, which means I am not. If you see the road ahead, it doesn't mean you're standing at the start. Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of the video and have a wonderful day. They are often miserable and able to thoroughly understand their misery and failures. Flowers for Algernon. I think truly smart people, those genuinely rare geniuses, are so smart that the rest of us can't even comprehend it. It must be a very strange feeling going through life knowing that most people just can't see and understand the things you do. It must be so extremely frustrating, yet most really, really intelligent people are so polite about it. Agreed. My experience is that most truly intelligent people are humble enough to know how much they don't understand, unlike most truly stupid people. Not being inherently competitive, but able to be crushed instantly by failure. That fear of failing can end up being crippling for many when they don't ever face it. This is kind of what happened with me in calculus. Every other math class I could breeze through without doing homework and hardly taking notes. Then I got to calculus, and it was like I hit a brick wall. I suddenly had to study and practice, and it was so overwhelming to me, I almost failed out of the class. The sad truth is that being smart isn't even a particularly good indicator on living a happy and fulfilling life. You could be extremely smart and intellectually capable, but if you got beat up as a kid, your parents died, you developed some personality disorder, etc., you're way worse off than someone well-adjusted with a below-average intelligence. Is this person talking about Batman? Because it sounds like they're talking about Batman. Lots of people will be jealous of them and resent them, including family members. Totally true. I was able to beat my grandfather at checkers when I was really young. He couldn't take it, so every time I was close to winning, he would announce that we were playing a different version of the game with different rules that allowed him to make some move that made him win. I wasn't allowed to play Trivial Pursuit with my family either. Now my sister-in-law, husband's sister, is trying to make house rules for Balderdash that penalize only me. It's very isolating. It's sad to see dumb people making dumb decisions in front of your eyes and not be able to do anything but only give them advice. Most helpful advice are a waste. Most dumb people argue a lot instead of reflecting as well as using critical thinking. So you will never win an argument against a dumb or biased person. So just walk away and tell them they are right. The absolute torture of group consensus when confident dumb people get to make important, terrible decisions. Never argue with stupid people. They will drag you down to their level and beat you with experience. Mark Twain. Came across this quote only a few years ago, and it has brought more peace to my life. The trick is to be humble enough to self-reflect at times and make sure I am not the idiot, but it's good advice for dealing with hard-headed people. See, I actually think that it's smart people who don't reflect that are the worst. They know they are smart in one area and thinks they mean they are the higher intelligence in all areas of debate. Those people are beyond infuriating to deal with. Intelligence doesn't always mean wisdom. Intelligence is knowing how to bring back dinosaurs from the dead. Wisdom is knowing that that's a bad idea. Intelligence is knowing Dr. Frankenstein is not the monster. Wisdom is knowing Dr. Frankenstein is the monster. Yes, the community where everybody thinks they're a genius. Far too many of these posts are giving advice from a first-person perspective. Half the comments on this post are below average. See, be like me. I am smart at most math, used to be good at grammar, and am a self-described ding-dong in most everything else. In the end, I'm just another pretty voice. Feel they can't have fun because they analyze everything. Also, if you specifically choose entertainment to require analysis by choosing deeper books, movies, and more complex games, you might find yourself alone in enjoying that. Many intelligent young people are poorly stimulated and challenged. Without the proper mental exercise, they're unlikely to live up to their potential. And with distractions like this website, they can waste even more potential. Intelligence is like four-wheel drive. It just lets you get lost in more remote places. Garrison Keillor. Common sense is not a gift, it is a punishment, because you have to deal with everyone who doesn't have it. And you start to realize that an absolutely absurd amount of people don't have it. Just look at the state of the world today, politics, COVID, etc. If common sense were more common, we'd likely to be out of the cascades of messes we're in. But no, and we're just banging on the proverbial glass screaming. I think common sense is a myth. It's more like personal sense. Something that seems perfectly clear and sensible to one person could look completely ridiculous to someone else with different experience, different education, different values, different desires, a different logic engine. Often, when use your common sense is put forward as an argument, it means the argument actually explaining the logic behind a decision has failed to convince. The smarter you get, the more you realize you don't know. We've got a lot of stories here trying to find different ways to plagiarize Socrates. Looks like we've got a Plato off. Smart does not automatically mean ethical, empathetic, conscientious, realistic, creative, pro-social, nice, interesting, likable. Expectations. In Asian culture, parents want you to succeed because it is your responsibility to uplift their lives. We waste them. Our entire social structure, from schools to mortgages, are designed for people with very average intellectual abilities. Smart people have to deal with the daily stress of living in a system that isn't built for them and lose a lot of their productivity and take a real hit to their mental health as a result. If we stopped subjecting them to standardized systems designed against them, just imagine how much further we would have advanced as a species. They'll never be the smartest. There's always someone better, someone smarter, someone more popular. Intelligent people can't state that they're intelligent because people view that as a sign of not being intelligent. But also, if you lord yourself around for being intelligent, there's the implication that you're belittling everyone around you by saying you're better than them. And people don't like that. If other people recognize a person as intelligent and respect that, then there are no problems. But a lot of the time, people won't do that because it gets in the way of their own pride. And if they do, then I find they're more likely to have more insecurities / less self-esteem. Then there's also the fact that intelligence is often conflated with success. Basically, people suck at gauging other people's intelligence, and that causes problems. Plenty of smart people will live their whole lives never realizing they're smart. And plenty of not smart people will live their whole lives believing they are. Loneliness. Hard to find other people who think and or feel as deeply as you do. Ugh, okay, we've let a few smug ones pass, but this one? You think people less smart than you don't feel as deeply as you do? Maybe you aren't as smart as you think. I have a PhD in astrophysics and work as a researcher at a university. I am by no means at the top of my field, but I am in the upper echelon, and I work directly with people who are the top of their field, including a Nobel laureate. Based on my very limited experience, this thread is completely filled with cope. The overwhelming majority of people who I work with are perfectly normal people who just happen to be very smart. They probably enjoy nerdy stuff more than the average punter, but in all honesty, the bulk of my non-work conversation with my colleagues is discussing either cricket or footy over a beer. All the people above me are perfectly functional members of society, most have a spouse, and many have kids. So all this crap about every smart person being a depressed, geeky psychopath is flat out wrong. That's not to say there's not weirdos and oddballs out there. I'm a clinically depressed alcoholic, so I'm not one to judge. My point is more that it's a very stereotypical thing to talk about how you're such an enlightened being solely because you don't fit into the societal norms, and this thread is absolutely chockers with people claiming that. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.